So there I was, minding my own business in my apartment, when all of a sudden my roommate says, "I've tested positive for COVID." Pizdets, I'm thinking. Now I've got to move back in with my parents to avoid the plague. So I do. Now I've moved back in with my parents. And my parents tell me, "We've tested positive for COVID." Pizdets, I'm thinking. What do I do now? Well, I did what any sane person would do, and I holed up in a room full of plants, and I painted a plague demon. Yug Shamash, everybody. It's me again. Things are going to be a little bit different this time around because not only has the venue changed, but the editing software has changed too. So no more stock photos for you, it's all solid research and solid painting. I hope you like it. So we're starting off this new trend of things with an Ultraforge Greater Plague Demon. Get it? Games Workshop, don't sue us. The Ultraforge Greater Plague Demon is essentially a ripoff of the Great Unclean One. It's something that Vyasar and I found online because I said I wanted to paint something that resembled a Nurgle demon and essentially paint a Great Unclean One. A Great Unclean One this is not, but it does kind of use a lot of the same techniques. And it has much of the same, I guess you could say, characteristics, appearances, tropes involved with its creation. So I consider it a worthy enough successor to the Games Workshop original. So what we're going to do today is paint this knockoff like we are painting the original. It's just an experiment, but we'll see how it goes. So, in mythology, at least in Warhammer mythology, Nurgle does most of his best work in a garden. So I figured, why not get into the character a little bit? This is the first time I'm painting quite literally surrounded and choked by plant life. So maybe it'll add to the vibe a little bit. And who knows? Perhaps we may frighten away the spirit of the plague with a little painting tribute to the man himself, shall we? Look at this corpulent mass of festering green. And oh, what's this? A brush full of flesh tone? Indeed, on such a model like this, you will find that inking is king. So we're going to take a little bit of that flesh ink here and rub it all over the model. You know you've done it right when the whole model looks kind of like it's been soaked in light diarrhea, but we're going to fix that pretty quickly. We're going to dry brush a skin color on top of it and then dry brush a really light skin color on top of that. With that really light layer, you want to be as heavy-handed as possible because you're not really trying to just lightly highlight, you're trying to add a whole new aesthetic to this rotting skin. Only after the sloppiness of doing the skin can we begin to zero in on the details like the leather, and in this case it's just thin straps all the way along the body. Then we're going to focus on the metal, which looks like I'm doing something like a Necron layer, but you'll find out later what I'm really up to with this. So consider this a milestone, if you will. We are looking at a completely base-coated model. The next stage is attacking the viscera. So all those blood and guts bits that are falling out of his stomach here, the flesh won't do it there. So what we got to do is, as you can see, make it redder. The wetness of contrast paint works great for that because it's already starting to give it that slimy look.
What made that hole in him?
It's just going to be his rot, his own decay, making the stuff fall out.
All right. Well, from a nurse's perspective, that looks like an incision, not a rot. What you want is a light amount of bruising around, a little further away from the edge. On the edge, you probably want a little bit of dried blood.
So like around this sort of ragged area?
Just a little bit, yeah.
All right.
Going with what Mickey knows about how wounds look, I'm going to do a edge highlight of bright pink, and then I'm going to make the bruises happen with purple ink later on. And I'm going to do this around the edges of just about every one of these little open spots in this guy's skin. And after that, I can prime for the buboes.
What did you call them?
The boobos.
What are the boobos, sir?
Well, the things on his boobs. You know, quite literally, these things. I'm going to make them a dark pink, and then I'm going to end up dry brushing over them until we reach a fever pitch yellow.
The bulbous protrusions on his skin should resemble pustules in the sense that they are darker at their bases, but lighter towards the center, almost as if there's some pus in the center of that. I know it's disgusting, but bear with me. The pink is used to darken the outside around the skin, while dry brushing with the yellow and white ensures that pus-filled look that we all grow to loathe. Combine that color with the brown color to make a nice highlight for the belt, and we're good to go there too. I quickly blended a light pink to dry brush his guts so that they don't look quite as glistening as they did before. So after all that splashing about in ink and dry brushing, it's time to actually get specific. I'll take some yellowish white and I will pick out the maggots that are eating his guts, as well as later on taking the nails with that same yellowish white. I'll pick them out and dry brush them later. Now, since this is a day for experiments, I'm going to do something different with the metal technique. I've got my base layer of that bronze color that I usually use with the Necron stuff that I do, but this time, instead of dry brushing silver, I'm dry brushing brown mixed with yellow for a nice rust color. I will then edge highlight the really ragged parts of the metal with that same rust color to make it distinct from the rest of the model. This gives it that dingy look without any trace of brightness, and that is just what I'd expect from a Chaos God. Alright, great success there, but now Mickey has to ruin my party again, and she reminds me that used metal edges are still shiny, so I am going to take some silver and I'm going to dry brush that all along the side of the blade to make it look like this guy's been at least sharpening it to use it. With the edge of the blade done, now it's time for some really sharp detail. The eyeballs. Dark orange for the background, light yellow for an overlay, and as we go along we're getting lighter and lighter towards white. And then for the pupil, a dark rust color. Thank Grandpa Nurgle that this model is big and corpulent enough to warrant using a base coat brush to do an eyeball detail, but I'd say the result is quite satisfactory and more than a little terrifying.
So just imagine you're walking through the jungle and then boom, all of a sudden, Demon Prince of Nurgle. You know,
Look at how ugly he is.
yeah, and I'm actually proud of it. I'm actually quite enthused. After doing something like this, a full-size Great Unclean One's gonna be no problem.
Wait, hold on, what do you mean full size? That's not full size? That thing's huge.
No, that's an alternate sculpt. That, because of its small base size, I don't think it could be used as anything bigger than a Demon Prince of Nurgle. Great Unclean Ones are like, you know, imagine that, but twice as wide and twice as tall. It's ginormous, and I think the main challenge with that will be the size rather than the detail, as this has proven.
Why is your game so ridiculous with the size of its models?
So there we are. Mission relative success. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for bearing with the change in format. So before we conclude this, I'm just going to start doing it this way so it's a bit more personal. The miniature is, of course, by Ultraforge. I have no idea when exactly it came out. Yeah, look for Ultraforge. You'll find it. The camera was, of course, done by Mickey, as per usual. The music is done by Axion and Goblin Hovel. Axion is a great electronic artist from Rochester. I'll link his music in the description below. Go check it out. It's great for any sort of soundtrack or battle. Just be sure to ask him first. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.
How much would the Great Unclean One at full size cost?
Probably in the ballpark of $150.